Many people think high vibration is some kind of mystical glow reserved for a chosen few. But anyone who looks at life more deeply realizes it shows up when someone finally stops fighting against who they really are. The mind stops hiding behind little masks, and something quieter, something inside, begins to guide the path. Carl Jung understood that the story goes much deeper than people imagine. It's like aligning an inner pointer, an emotional compass that's always been there, just waiting to be used. And when that happens, the mind's true power reveals itself in a simple way. It stops pushing out a version of life that doesn't match what it feels inside. Some call this a spiritual awakening, but at its core, it's just raw honesty, the willingness to face your own darkness without fear. Life gets lighter, not because the problems disappear, but because there's a silent agreement between the heart and the mind. And strangely, the deeper that internal pact becomes, the more the outside world responds. A person experiencing high vibration feels as if their steps finally match the ground beneath them. Nothing feels exaggerated, nothing needs to be forced, things just fit. They know their shadows, not to feel ashamed of them, but to integrate them with calm, like welcoming forgotten pieces of their own story back home. This inner transformation takes courage. It asks you to face memories, repressed desires, old fears. It's not always beautiful. Sometimes it's like walking into a dusty room you haven't opened in years. But once you start clearing it out, everything becomes clearer. Little by little, old layers fall away, revealing something solid at the core. That's where lightness is born, not from running away, but from integrating everything, like gold formed out of chaos. With that inner harmony, a person starts to know themselves deeply. They can sense what truly belongs to them and what comes from others. They stop carrying guilt that isn't theirs. This self-awareness creates emotional space, clean space, where feelings aren't enemies but messengers. The mind stops projecting its wounds onto others because it has already learned how to welcome them inside. It's almost like practicing emotional alchemy, turning old wounds into wisdom. Even something as simple as keeping a dream journal can help you understand messages coming from the unconscious. Some people say that after writing for a few weeks, important memories begin to surface. Anyone who walks this path realizes that understanding your own psyche changes the way you live. It's like life opens a new door, no instruction manual, just an inner sign guiding the way. Think about that feeling of having lived on autopilot for years. Wake up, work, sleep, until something finally clicks. A question appears. Is this really all there is? That discomfort is the invitation. A person begins treating themselves with more kindness, noticing how they react, recognizing repeating patterns, revisiting their childhood. Little by little, they embrace their fragile parts, like taking a child by the hand. This inner acceptance changes everything: relationships, choices, even the rhythm of the day. A quiet strength rises, not aggressive but steady. And people around may not understand what changed, but they can tell something is different. It feels like that person finally found themselves, without having to go far at all. Then something interesting happens. Life starts responding. Meaningful coincidences become more frequent. A conversation at the perfect moment, a book that suddenly appears, an unexpected encounter that opens new doors. It's not superstition, it's psychological coherence. The outer world begins reflecting what's moving inside, as if reality itself found a voice. Small signs point the way and confirm the choices you make. These moments feel like the universe whispering, "Keep going." And the more a person trusts this flow, the smoother the path becomes. Almost like destiny is having a constant conversation with them. And it's exactly from this alignment that the first rare sign is born, the one almost no one notices at first. Rare sign number 1, they don't chase, they attract. When someone is in a high vibration state, they don't need to chase anything. Their presence speaks for them. It's like their body, their voice, and even their silence carry a clear message. I know who I am. That kind of inner coherence creates a psychic field that pulls people, opportunities, and even unlikely coincidences their way, the so-called perfect timing moments. While most people are out there desperately seeking validation, this person has already found something solid within. There's a quiet confidence that doesn't need noise. The world feels it and responds. It's not arrogance, it's clarity. Like that friend who never forces anything, yet somehow everything just flows around her. This energy shows up in how they move through life. No rush, but focused. No fear, but responsible. They walk into a room and change the atmosphere without saying a word. You know that feeling when someone arrives and suddenly conversations get lighter, ideas start popping up, and everyone seems to breathe easier? That's it. It's presence. And presence is rare. People like this don't try to convince anyone. They let their actions speak. They don't drown in anxiety trying to prove their worth, because they understand that what matters most doesn't need to scream. You can even see it in their choices. They decide slowly, with intention, without getting swept up by empty promises. There's discernment, standards, and above all, awareness. One of the strongest signs of this magnetism is their ability to let go of outcomes. They might want something, a relationship, a new job, a big change, but they don't suffocate themselves trying to control every detail. They do their part consistently, and then they breathe. That kind of detachment opens space for things to unfold naturally. It's like planting a seed and trusting the soil, the rain, and time. While others drown in anxiety, they hold a stubborn kind of peace. And, strangely enough, that peace is what draws things toward them. It's beautiful to see. The less they try to grab onto the world, the closer the world gets. But this magnetism doesn't mean passivity. Actually, it's the opposite. It's active presence. They have clear boundaries, without being harsh. They know how to say no without guilt, because they've learned to honor their inner limits. And that clarity creates a sense of safety that others recognize instantly. In relationships, they don't play seduction games, don't beg for attention, and don't chase after people who are leaving. They understand that everyone has their own timing, and true connections don't require pursuit. What's real stays, and what's not dissolves. It sounds simple, but it's incredibly powerful. For anyone who wants to cultivate this, the journey starts on the inside. First, silence. Learning to hear your own voice instead of the crowd. Then, focus on what matters. Simple routines help. Journaling in the morning, walking alone, paying attention to your breath while drinking coffee. Small practices strengthen that inner spark. It also helps to explore the unconscious, symbols, and dreams. Even keeping a notebook by the bed to jot down insights or dreams can open new paths. Little by little, the mind becomes less reactive, the heart feels more whole, and life begins to settle into its own rhythm. And once someone gets to this point, something even rarer begins to unfold. Rare sign number 2, radical emotional cleanliness. When someone reaches a higher vibration, they start to understand something simple but life-changing. They are not responsible for everyone else's emotions. There's a quiet knowing that every person carries their own inner world, and mixing all of that together only creates confusion. With that clarity, they can sit inside emotionally intense situations without getting swallowed by them. It's like standing in the middle of a storm with an emotional umbrella so strong that the rain barely touches your skin. Of course they feel things. Other people's pain still echoes. But they don't take it on as their own. It's the kind of presence that calms you just by being there. No rush to fix, convince, or control. They simply keep their heart open and their feet firmly on the ground. This kind of inner cleanliness begins with the ability to feel without merging. Anger might show up. Sadness might come. Fear might knock. But instead of reacting automatically, they create a tiny inner pause before responding. That pause is where the ability to choose lives. This isn't bookstore spirituality. It's practice, sweat, and awareness. If something hurts, they explore the pain. If something provokes them, they ask why. They've learned not to take everything personally because they know that most of the time, what people spill onto others really belongs to them. That distinction is a turning point for anyone who wants to stay soft on the inside and strong on the outside. Here, it's worth introducing a key concept from Carl Jung. Explained simply, projection. Jung said that when someone refuses to acknowledge parts of themselves, their fears, desires, insecurities, they end up projecting all of that onto others. For example, someone who can't face their own aggression might see aggressive people everywhere. Someone who denies their own envy sees enemies where there are none. A person with emotional hygiene recognizes their inner baggage, so they don't need to dump it on anyone else. They understand that the external world works like a mirror, and they use that mirror to grow, not to attack. That's psychological maturity, looking inward before pointing outward. In everyday life, this awareness is practical. In an argument, instead of raising their voice, they take a breath and observe what's happening inside. When memories or strong reactions surface, they write them down, revisit them, talk things through with themselves. They might use simple tools, like journaling in the morning, or sitting in silence for 5 minutes before the day starts. That small discipline creates a clean space in the mind. And interestingly, that clean space is where intuition blooms, like a quiet voice showing the best direction. They start to recognize patterns, understand their triggers, and that becomes liberating. They can tell when they're responding to the present or reliving the past. This process naturally strengthens boundaries. They stop playing emotional games, engaging in silent guilt trips, or sinking into subtle manipulation. If someone tries to manipulate them, they notice instantly, not with judgment, but with clarity. They say no respectfully, keep their distance when needed, and don't sacrifice their inner peace just to please others. At work, they stay away from gossip. In relationships, they choose depth over drama. With themselves, they practice honesty. They know when to support and when to step back to protect their energy. They don't absorb other people's chaos, not out of coldness, but out of wisdom. It's like keeping your home tidy. Doors open, yes, but not letting just any mess walk in. This emotional hygiene opens space for real connections and meaningful encounters. Friendships feel lighter, relationships healthier, conversations more honest. There's no time for masks, competition, or mind games. When something feels off, they either talk about it or walk away, without blaming or dramatizing. Life starts to flow more simply and with more meaning, almost as if the inner and outer worlds finally come to an agreement. And at that point, something interesting begins to happen. When someone is already cleaning what they feel, welcoming what shows up, and understanding life's mirror, reality begins to respond in a way that feels almost mysterious, as if speaking another language. Rare sign number 3, synchronicity becomes a language. When someone reaches a certain level of inner alignment, something interesting starts to happen. Reality becomes intimate, not in a romantic way, but in a symbolic one. It's as if the outside world stops being just a background and turns into a conversation partner. What we used to call coincidence starts to have texture, intention, kindness. You think of an old friend, and suddenly they show up. You're looking for an answer in the middle of chaos, and that answer appears on the cover of a book you haven't touched in years. Moments that once went unnoticed now light up like small lanterns along the path. Nothing is loud, yet everything feels meaningful. It's something like this. First, you find harmony within, and then the universe seems to harmonize around you. Things happen at the right time, in just the right way without force. An invitation comes exactly when you were thinking about expanding your career. A random conversation brings the clarity you've been searching for months. Situations that once felt scattered now fit together like puzzle pieces that were always there, just waiting to be seen. Synchronicity becomes a kind of secret language between consciousness and destiny, subtle but precise. This symbolic language shows up in many ways. Vivid dreams carrying clear messages. Unexpected encounters that feel like planned chapters. Repeating numbers or images that appear in specific moments. You might wake up with a question sitting in your chest, and that same afternoon hear the answer in a coffee shop conversation. It's an intelligent flow, quiet and deliberate, a choreography between inner and outer life. None of this demands belief. It's noticeable in practice. Once you experience it, you recognize it. And as people say, once you start seeing it, you can't unsee it. This phenomenon becomes even more noticeable when someone dives into what Jung called shadow work. Here's the simple version. The shadow isn't the bad part of you, it's the hidden part. It's the feelings, impulses, fears, and desires we shove into the basement of the mind because we don't know how to deal with them. Shadow work is the process of inviting those parts back to the table. It's facing what you've avoided for years, your insecurity, jealousy, need for control, and saying, okay, let's talk. It's not about judging yourself, it's about integrating. And when we make that move, we stop projecting our inner world onto others and start recognizing it within ourselves. The energy we once used to hide becomes energy we can use to live with authenticity. Jung said that everything we refuse to acknowledge turns against us in disguise. For example, someone who doesn't face their anger might constantly attract conflict. Someone who can't accept their vulnerability might become hypercritical. Shadow work dissolves that blindness. And when it does, awareness clears and reality responds. Synchronicity blooms because we stop resisting who we are. Life starts communicating through signs, symbols, and encounters. A butterfly during a crisis might remind you that cycles end. A closed door might be protection. A delay might save you. Instead of reacting, you watch. Instead of doubting, you ask, what is this trying to show me? With this deeper listening, everyday life gains another dimension. You begin to see that external events aren't just events, they're invitations. The universe, or your deeper mind, if you prefer, starts leaving clues along the way. Sometimes the clues are big, like meeting someone who changes your life. Other times they're subtle, like a sentence that keeps showing up everywhere. Some people keep a notebook just to record these moments. Dreams, encounters, sudden ideas, striking phrases. Months later, when they read it back, they notice a thread, a sense of coherence that only now makes sense. It's like life itself was your secret mentor all along. But synchronicity doesn't exist to entertain us. It exists to move us. It points the way, but it won't walk it for you. Sometimes it calls you toward scary change, a new job, a breakup, an unexpected trip. Other times, it encourages you to stay. The challenge is listening with a steady heart, without attachment. Because the language of synchronicity doesn't shout, it whispers. And those who have already done their emotional cleaning, who have sat with their shadows, who have listened to their dreams, they recognize that whisper easily. It becomes a guide. And when someone starts following this inner, outer dialogue, they discover that this path comes with a cost, a price few are willing to pay. When people talk about reaching a high vibration, many imagine something soft and poetic, like lighting incense and thinking positive thoughts. But in real life, the path is much rougher, and only a few are willing to pay the price. It's not about eliminating negative emotions, it's about facing them head-on. You have to go down into the basement of your own mind, look your fears in the eye, admit your flaws, and let go of old identities. That takes a quiet, almost secret kind of courage, because no one claps when you decide to change from the inside out. If anything, people get uncomfortable. Most want change, but they don't want to give anything up. And that's the first cost, letting go. This process often comes with periods of solitude. Not the sad kind, the fertile kind. The silence where your inner truth finally has space to speak. It's common to lose people, habits, even places. At first, it feels like everything is falling apart. Later, you realize that only what wasn't real is what fell away. Those who face this stage feel something unusual. Life becomes quieter on the outside, but sharper on the inside. Pleasure stops coming from distraction and starts coming from presence. A quiet cup of coffee becomes meaningful. A simple walk becomes a prayer. But that kind of simplicity scares anyone who's still attached to chaos. The journey also requires breaking emotional patterns. Many people have learned to use drama as a way to connect, like lighting a fire just to have company. When someone chooses to change, they realize they no longer need that artificial flame. And naturally, some relationships dissolve. Toxic people drift away not because you push them out, but because they can't feed on a clean heart. Connections that once felt intense reveal their fragility. It hurts, of course. There's grief. There's longing. But there is also freedom. It's like taking off a backpack full of stones. First you miss the weight, then comes the relief. Another price is learning not to be nice all the time. High vibration doesn't go with passivity, it goes with truth. People who always said yes start saying no. Those who swallowed everything start setting boundaries. The goal stops being to be loved and becomes to be whole. And that changes the environment around them. Some people will admire it, others will find it strange. It's common to feel uncomfortable standing up for your values, especially if you grew up believing that peace means the absence of conflict. With time, you realize that true peace is inner alignment, not submission. And that alignment demands clarity. Speaking the truth, even when your voice shakes. Finally, there's the highest price, letting go of the persona. That version of you built to impress, survive, or fit in, it has to go. And that hurts, because the persona protected you for years. It was shelter, mask, shield. But eventually it becomes a prison. Letting go of that false identity is stepping into the unknown, the place where real transformation happens. Few choose this leap because there are no guarantees, only intuition. But those who do discover something priceless, living according to their soul. At that stage, they realize they don't need to chase anything, because everything that is theirs finds them. In the end, walking in a high vibration isn't about being perfect. It's about being honest with yourself. It's choosing to listen to your inner voice when the world is loud, choosing to follow your heart when the path feels uncertain. And above all, it's remembering that every sign, every coincidence, every unexpected encounter carries a piece of you, calling you to keep growing. What we explored here is simple, but deep. High vibration isn't a magical destination. It's an inner movement. It's when you find your inner compass again and start walking in alignment with who you really are. That alignment creates a quiet magnetism. You stop chasing and you begin to attract. Life stops feeling forced and starts to feel guided. We also saw that people who reach this state cultivate radical emotional clarity. They can tell what belongs to others and what rises from within. They stop reacting on impulse and start responding with awareness. They feel deeply but don't drown. They look at their own shadow instead of pointing at someone else's. And that changes everything. When that inner balance is born, the world starts speaking. Synchronicity becomes a language. Coincidences gain meaning. Encounters have purpose. And time begins to work with almost surgical precision. It's not magic, it's coherence. The inner and the outer start walking together. But none of this comes without cost. Very few are willing to face emotional discipline, necessary goodbyes, and the kind of silence that hurts before it heals. Few have the courage to drop the masks, to let go of the need to please, to keep going even when no one understands. And still, those who choose this path discover something rare. Life gains depth. Relationships become more real. And the soul finally can breathe. Now the real question is, what are you going to do with all of this? Will you let these ideas just echo in your mind? Or will you turn them into action? One small step a day, even if no one is watching? Maybe the first step is simple. Treat your emotions with more kindness. Write down your dreams when you wake. Or simply choose to walk away from people who drain your energy. Other steps will come naturally once you realize you don't need to rush. You just need to align. The more you listen to yourself, the more the world listens to you. And if these signs resonated with you, even just a little, then something is already moving inside. The question is, will you ignore it or accept the invitation? If you want to keep learning, go deeper on this journey and start turning this knowledge into action. Subscribe to the channel now and turn on notifications. Here, you'll always find content to help you navigate the mind, the soul, and the invisible mysteries that connect everything.